Hello, my friends. This is the French new TV show of 2025, and it's called to Be 3. So basically, Called to Be 3 is a band that was popular in 1990s in France, and basically we are gonna discuss the main character and who they are. First character is Philippe, this man, basically. And he is gonna be the main character who is behind the idea of becoming famous. And his basically group friend consists of Adele. Adele is this man, and basically this is the moment that basically happens later at some point, but we are trying basically to, make this introduction for you to know basically characters and to understand the intentions, the motives of these three. And basically, the last man is Frank, and together they basically wanna to get out of their small town and basically to go to Paris. But the idea of becoming famous first came to Philippe, and initially basically the idea was just to participate in TV show in contest called The Most Handsome Man of France, something like this. So basically that was Philippe's idea, and he basically saw on TV that models just participating in some type of contest, and given his appearance he can just easily apply for this contest. But it's not that easy actually, because later on basically he multiple times was rejected to participate in that The Most Handsome Man of France contest. And basically he dances and all his friends basically dance as well, but they didn't consider basically to find that spotlight together. Only Philippe was striving for that fame. His other friends, Adele and Frank, they were just they were so busy with another duties, like basically one of them is studying in college or something like this, and another boy, he is basically almost a professional boxer. And after Philippe was rejected third time to participate in that contest, basically he came up with an idea that he can just directly call a man who is behind that contest. His name Jean-Pierre Boris, and he basically asked his friends to help him. But at this point we are getting to know another character who is so important to this story, and she is artistic manager. She is looking for talented young people to make them basically stars, and she is about to get fired from her company, from her label, because she wasn't able to come up with anything original, and her boss basically told her that she has less than a month to find something, and at the same time, basically, Philippe and his friends, they trying to, talk to that man who is organizing the contest, the most handsome man of France, and they basically found out his location and how basically to find him, and they went to Paris for that man to directly just confront him and to call out him for rejecting Philippe to participate in that contest. And they went to that club to talk to that man, but before entering that club, basically Philippe got another contact from another big figure in this industry. He got this basically contact, and a man who gave him that, he is just literary critic, and basically he is a famous, affluent person. But Philippe is not just aware of that, and they went to that club basically to get all the necessary information and to convince that Philippe, he needs to participate, he has to be on that contest. And he was able to convince the organizer, the director of that contest, the most handsome man of France, and he basically got accepted. And after that, they celebrated basically their success, and they basically, partied. And after that, basically next morning, Philippe went to that other man, Michel, whose contact he got at the club basically before going to that, other person. And basically this Michel was even more influenced, and after basically Philippe found out that this new acquaintance of Philippe, he can basically use him as a key to that, not only to that contest, but he basically can help him to break into even the top of the industry, the music industry of France in 1990s. And the other way Philippe could have basically succeeded in that area is to find basically a label, and the main label in this TV show is this, I'm not sure about the name because it wasn't really mentioned, but Salome is the artistic manager who is about to hire some talented man, and she is going to that most handsome man, France's most handsome man contest, because she is looking for new faces. And she basically went to that contest, and she ran into Philippe's friend Adele, and she liked him because of his charisma and his dancing. But the main reason why Philippe's friends were there, because they were basically cheering him up, because after that contest, basically Philippe won that contest and he became France's most handsome man. But this basically artistic manager, she offered Adele to become her new star, not Philippe. And Philippe basically was confused. Why not him? Because he basically won that contest, but the offer basically not for him, but for his friend. And that confusion basically kind of reasonable because he put a lot of work into that contest, but his friend also, capable of basically catching attention. So all three of them, they are just so fitting into that industry. And this is why basically Adele he suggested this artistic manager that all three of them basically can be on that stage. And he basically suggested that he can bring his friends, including Philippe and Frank. And basically the most popular music during that time, 1990s, was basically American music, and including American groups. And for basically to become as famous as American groups during that time, 1990s, you had to basically come up with something really quality, really good lyrics, really something that would be not only popular in France. So for them, this is like a huge challenge to find a songwriter to make it work. And basically after artistic manager and her basically girlfriend, who is choreographer, they were basically trying to find a good songwriter for these three boys to make them basically a band and to basically teach them singing and dancing. And basically the idea itself is just, to create the copy of popular American group during that period, 1990s. And we know a lot of popular American bands during 90s, but the most important one was with Justin Timberlake, his band, the one that made him famous, and they were basically trying kind of to copy that band. So, but for them, basically, it was really difficult because they didn't have any skills, only break dance, which is not a case because they were basically trying to make them pop stars, not like hip hop stars or something like this. But they still trying to make this work. And Philip basically is the type of character who is just going after any opportunity and not even thinking twice before saying that he's ready while he's not really. And jumping into that opportunity basically made it even more complicated because now this artistic manager who just was fired from her label, she and her girlfriend, they need basically to come up with a good music, a good song, like in a short period, and they need basically to write that song as soon as possible. And given that they have only these three men who basically not even able to sing or dance properly, and they basically want to make them completely like opposite of what they used to be. And this is the interesting idea of the whole concept of this TV show, because creating out of like complete strangers to that pop industry the future band, the future famous band, and that band was actually in France in 1990s, and this is based on the actual, boys band, and in France they were quite popular. So the story is trying to adapt that real event and to make it somehow, similar to the group I don't remember the name, but as I told you before, the group that was popular in America in 1990s. So they are trying to copy that group, and at the same time for France it like something really new because nobody came up with boys band, and especially with American type of music, because they try really just to copy even the music, how it sounds. And Philippe basically using not only that opportunity with a label, but he basically found this person, Michel, at that club. And after that, basically, he went to his place, and Michel basically gave him some really good advice. He basically offered him his help, and more specifically, he told him that as a literary critic, he can give him a quote from a book every week or something like this, and he needs to learn that quote. He needs to reflect on the book and to show Michel's friends that Philippe is kind of, aware of literature, and that he reads books, that he is, not a stranger in that area, and to kind of just to impress affluent people from Michel's group of friends. And basically he was able kind of to impress them, but at the same time, basically another opportunity with a label was kind of stalled before, because the main director of this label, he wasn't really willing to, to basically to make a showcase for Philippe and his friends. he wasn't really ready to accept another project, and he kind of basically rejected that, offer from his artistic manager. And after that, basically, they realized that they need basically to go separate ways. And she decided, after she quit that label, after she was fired, basically, she realized that no matter what, she needs to make this band work, basically. And they basically recorded first song. They were able to come up with good lyrics, and the lyrics basically happened naturally. They were struggling to make up good lyrics, but in a heated argument between all the members, they just, they basically, specifically this artistic manager, she was able to catch some phrases from Philippe, and she used this for the lyrics of a new song. And so, unintentionally, but that song basically was supposed to impress the director of a label, and she even basically, interrupted him in the middle of his, I don't know, he was going just to Ibiza, and she basically interrupted him, and she asked him basically to give a chance to this, band, future band, and he didn't basically like it. And after seeing them singing and dancing, he of course rejected this, opportunity for Philippe and his friends. And after that, basically, she was already leaving this label, and all her artists, including some older ones, like who were working with her for a long time, they were basically forced to leave this label or to stay with another manager. And for Philippe, basically, there is no chance that they can survive in this industry without manager like her. And Philippe's friend Frank basically suggested that they need a music video, basically. They cannot convince that director just by giving him that song, but they can come up with a good music video, which is, of course, more than just lyrics. And they can make basically that music video using the money that they basically saved for this moment. And Salome, basically an artistic director, artistic manager, Salome and her girlfriend, they used all the savings they had for this music video, basically. And Salome and her girlfriend, basically, they kind of put everything on this future band, which is not even, established or anything. They are still learning like how to sing. So basically, only music video just made it happen, and they basically managed to impress all the members of this label all the directorate to basically accept this music video and to accept this band. And they actually liked it. And after that, Salome basically came back to this label, and she was hired back after getting fired. But the worst part of this coming back is that the band now belongs to the director of this label, not to her. And after she basically developed, after she taught the boys everything from singing to dancing, how to represent themselves, basically she has no control over them. At least she cannot basically, secure like that position, because once basically someone got control over that band, the artists, they can easily basically use them in any way they want. So this is why this is like a stick with two ends. And on one hand, it's just finally, recognition, and they became basically more popular, of course. But on the other hand, basically, they signed to that label, which basically controlled by some, people who's just using the talented artists, and basically profiting from them. So in this basically TV show, there is multiple examples of how industry during 1990s worked, and how becoming an artist and getting recognition was a challenge. And specifically a boys band like this was so popular in America, and due to foreign language and that nobody can really understand the lyrics, American groups were popular in France, in Europe, and to copy that style, to copy that, music, they basically had to make it sound similar and to move, to dance in similar way. And basically that was the only solution, because everything else was already reused. And for the group, basically, the success was quite, unexpected, because nobody was really, primary to that video, to that music video. Nobody was really a singer or a dancer, or nobody was really just, participating in this type of, activities. But they were able basically to make them like the biggest stars of French scene, of French industry. And I'm not really familiar with French music, but since this is based on the real story, the real artists who called also B2B3. The same name of the brand was in 1990s, and with some differences basically from the actual artists. This story basically was recreated by filmmakers, French filmmakers, and they basically made it like with some refreshing characters, and they made some characters even different genders, but it doesn't really matter because the whole TV show just working and entertaining you. At some point it's just, becoming like 6 episodes of one journey of 3 men who is just, continuously just looking for that opportunity, and at some point they finally breaking into the top of French music industry. But if you're gonna watch it, you will have only subtitles, or if you really understand French, it's just perfect for you because the whole TV show in French language, of course. But at the same point, it has so much moments when you don't even need, or when you don't even want to understand the dialogues, because it has also a lot of good scenes, dances, and interactions when just, simple language used. And the whole point of the TV show is probably not even like the language itself and the language that is body language. That is the most important part of this movie, of this TV show. And the TV show is about, making 3 different persons seem like they really just synchronized, like they really just a band that was together forever, and they wanted to make them look like they basically, can feel the rhythm. And given that they had only little basically skills of dancing, like break dance, they were forced to learn from the scratch how to dance the pop music, how to dance the pop style. No, not the break dance, but the idea of just, creating something out of, out of people that initially basically not even like suitable, completely the opposite. The idea of just creating the drama and more, moments to keep watching and to finally, to finally see how they succeeding. So this is the TV show from France 2025, and it was just released like yesterday. And if you want to find it, just check called 2B3, a new French TV show. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.